We can't categorize a victim. We can't say this is what a victim looks like. We can't say this is what an offender looks like. An offender looks like me, and a victim looks like me. An offender looks like you, and a victim looks like you. Child abuse, no matter what community you go to, and I travel and I open the newspaper and read it every day, and when I'm in a local community I can see stories about child abuse that's happening in those communities. I think it's important nationwide to teach our children to be heard. When I was growing up, you were to be seen and not heard. You were to be nice. You were to act in a certain way. But now I try to empower the children to be heard. If they have something to say it. And we don't always have to be nice. If somebody gives you the creeps, if somebody you don't want to talk to, you don't have to talk to them. And you can speak out and you can say those things.
I was sexually assaulted, and this is an estimate because I don't recall exactly the year. I'm thinking that it was around age 10. So that'd be, what, 1994, something like that. 94, 95, around there. And I tried to commit suicide when I was 15 years old. I remember it was we had a day off of school. It was a Monday. I don't remember exactly when it was, what day, but I do recall that it was a Monday. We had no school. And my mother decided to leave us alone with him. You know, she trusted him. So that day, my sisters were taking a nap. It was around the afternoon. My mom was still at work. And I recall him putting on a rated R movie. And there were some parts that made me feel uncomfortable because I was only about 10 or 11. And then he put my sisters to take a nap in their bedroom, and you know, came up to me and said, "Let's play a game." It was all about let's play a game type of situation. After he convinced me to, you know, play a game, basically he put a blindfold on me. I was tied, and I was sexually assaulted in several rooms in my home. And I want people to know that sometimes, you know, parents say, well, you know, why didn't the child say something, or why didn't they scream, or why didn't they yell? Or I remember going, you know, when I was 10 years old, I didn't know what was going on. I was very confused. I knew it was wrong. I felt horrible. And then also, at that moment, I was actually tied with, I don't know what they're called. I think it's a dog chain, but it has, I can recall it, it has like 2 rings at the end. And it was some type of dog chain, because we had dogs. And after the incident, I remember he just said, it's gonna be okay. There was comments that he made to me. Things about made that now as an adult I reflect back and I think, well, maybe this wasn't the first time, because he would make comments. He was from Central America, and he made comments about, this is what happens to girls where I come from, things like that. I drank a bunch of, I think it was Tylenol, like a bottle. I just drank it, and my mother walked into the kitchen and saw me and saw the bottle was empty, you know, and asked, what are you doing? What's going on? That type of thing. And I remember her crying and asking this man, what do I do? And, you know, I remember his comments like, well, I don't care, let her die. She wants to die. Obviously, that's not important. And we ended up going to the ER, obviously. My stomach was pumped, all that medical stuff that they had to do. But I can recall, you know, what's so interesting is, and I'm sure it's practiced now, whenever someone commits suicide, there was a social worker that came in that spoke to me from the hospital. And one of the questions were, was, do you feel safe at home? Have you ever been sexually assaulted? You know, those types of questions. And I disclosed to her. I remember her. I don't remember her name, but I remember what she looks like. I disclosed to her and I let her know that this had happened in my home. This had happened to me, and the violence that occurred in my home. Nothing was done.
You can report anonymously. You don't have to prove the sexual abuse or the child abuse. You just have to suspect it. Nobody's asking anybody to do an investigation. Nobody's asking anybody, are you sure? We're just saying, report it so that the proper authorities can look into it and can find out what is going on, and they have the power to investigate. And if you report it as the teacher, and then someone else, say the counselor, has the disclosure and they report it, maybe the victim goes to the doctor and says, and now you have a pattern.
So when I was around 20 years old, I was at home, and I remember playing with my youngest daughter at the time, and my mom called me. She was very upset, saying, you know, your sister, who at that point would have been about 16 years old, she's giving me a hard time. I don't know what else to do with her. She's not going to school. She quit cheer. She's just acting totally different. She's very rebellious, you know, talking back, cussing at me. I think she's doing drugs. We just had a huge fight, and she's very angry. Will you come and help me? Will you come and talk to her and see, you know, what we could do? You know, and I said, of course, okay, I'll be right there. I remember that it was a Monday. The reason I can recall that is because it was a prayer service that she had to go to. I got there to my mother's home, and I remember walking in. I walked to my mother's bedroom, and he was there. Like, I just knew something had happened. I don't know how else to put it. And I asked our youngest sister to step out of the room. I said, please step out of the room. Me and you know, our sister were gonna talk. And she did. She stepped out of the room. She didn't leave the hallway though. She was right there by the door. And I looked at my sister, and I looked her in the eye, and I said, what's going on? And she started crying, and she said, what happened to you has happened to me. And I just knew, and I remember using a lot of bad language, cussing, and saying I'm going to kill him, because he was down the hallway in my mother's bedroom. I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him. And my sister said no, and then my other sister heard the commotion, walked in the room, and said, it's been happening to me. And of course that infuriated me even more, because it was going on with both of my sisters. And that was the first time that they knew that they were both victims of sexual assault. So it was going on with them, but they didn't know that was happening. And I remember yelling at them, get your shoes on. And I was headed down the hallway to confront this man. And my sisters held me back and said, we can't say anything. We can't do nothing about it. Don't say anything. Please don't tell anybody. Please don't tell anybody. I said, no, we are going to say something. And they said, one of my sisters said, if we tell someone, he would tell me, if we tell someone, he's going to kill mom. He's going to kill mom.
I believe that there are so many resources available, not only in our community, but nationwide, that for a child to suffer, or a victim to suffer, for an adult to suffer with this victimization it's a sad thing for them to have to deal with, because there are so many knowledgeable, helpful people, and all we need to do is point them in the right direction.
There is hope. Sexual assault does not define you. It is not your fault. Doesn't matter where you were at, what you were doing. just remember that it's never your fault. Keep telling someone. Find your safe person, whether it's a teacher, a police officer, a family member, a religious leader. Keep telling. There will be someone who believes you. There is help. You can always reach out to La Piñon and just talk to someone. One day, I promise you this, one day you'll be okay. It's probably not going to be the same okay as before this terrible thing happened to you. But you'll be okay. You'll be able to look back and see that you are a survivor. Maybe you'll become a victim advocate yourself, like me.